नमस्कार, मैं हूं संगीता सिंह और नवोदय टाइम्स पंजाब केसरी के डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म पर आपका स्वागत है। पश्चिम एशिया में जारी जंग का असर भारत पर कितना बुरा पड़ रहा है, ये आरबीआई के नए वित्त वर्ष की दूसरी मीटिंग के बाद सामने आया है। आरबीआई गवर्नर संजय मल्होत्रा ने साफ किया है कि जो इस बार देश में महंगाई दर है उसको बढ़ने का अनुमान लगाया गया है। जो महंगाई दर है उसमें 4.6% से 5.1% की महंगाई दर बढ़ने का अनुमान लगाया गया है। इसके अलावा जो देश की जीडीपी ग्रोथ यानी कि आर्थिक विकास दर है, इसमें भी कमियां आने का अनुमान लगाया गया है। बता दें कि जो आर्थिक विकास दर का जो अनुमान था वो 6.9% से घटाकर 6.6% रहने का जो अनुमान है वो लगाया गया है। हालांकि इस बीच एक राहत की खबर बस यही रही है कि जो रेपो रेट है उसमें कोई बदलाव नहीं किया गया है, जिससे कि आपके जो ईएमआई और लोन हैं वो स्थिर रहेंगे। जो रेपो रेट है उसको 5.25% पर फिलहाल स्थिर रखा गया है। आरबीआई गवर्नर ने पश्चिम एशिया संकट को लेकर और जो देश की जो सप्लाई चेन है जो प्रभावित हो रही है इस युद्ध की वजह से, उसको लेकर और आगे जो देश को लेकर क्या अनुमान लगाए हैं, ये अब हम आपको सुनाते हैं।
Good morning and namaskar. Over the past few months, the economy has been shaped by heightened uncertainty, disruptions to key trade routes and supply chains, increased market volatility, and cautious business sentiment. Let me at the very outset emphasize that the Indian economy entered this episode of global turbulence with much better fundamentals than in previous similar episodes. We remain confident to withstand these shocks with minimum pain. Nevertheless, it is important to not only confront and address these challenges, but also at the same time take this as an opportunity to further enhance our resilience. Global economic outlook remains clouded by the continuing geopolitical impasse in West Asia, as sharply escalating energy prices and global supply chain disruptions continue to hinder economic activity. Faced with difficult trade-offs, monetary policy has turned more cautious. Major advanced economy central banks are likely to pivot towards monetary policy tightening. While equity markets remain buoyant, driven by AI-fueled optimism, global bond markets remain bearish amidst renewed inflation fears and continuing debt sustainability concerns. Risk-off sentiments and safe haven demand are imparting volatility to forex markets, with a depreciating trend in many EME currencies. In this backdrop, the Monetary Policy Committee met on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of this month to deliberate and decide on the policy repo rate. After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial developments and the outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to keep the policy repo rate under the LAF unchanged at 5.25%. Consequently, the STF rate remains at 5% and the MSF rate and the bank rate at 5.5%. The MPC also decided to continue with the neutral stance. I shall now briefly set out the rationale for the decisions of the MPC. The committee noted that the global environment has deteriorated since the last policy meeting in April, with the conflict lingering amidst a fragile truce. The adverse implications of the extended disruption in supply chains and elevated energy prices are reflected in the moderation of growth and increase in inflation projections from the April policy, and I'll come to these a little later. CPI inflation remains below the target despite global shock, as the pass-through to domestic prices has been limited, while the baseline projections point towards headline inflation firming up towards the upper tolerance level in Q3 this year. The impact of the supply shock is expected to wane Q4 onwards. The underlying inflation pressures continue to remain benign at this juncture. However, generalization of inflation through second round effects on expectations and wages is a distinct possibility warranting a close vigil. The outlook also remains clouded due to the subnormal southwest monsoon forecast and El Nino risks. As for growth, the MPC noted that elevated energy prices coupled with global supply constraints are having adverse spillovers on economic activity. While domestic demand remains resilient and manufacturing and services sectors activity continue to expand, there are incipient signs of moderation in some sectors as suggested by high frequency indicators.